Hey everybody, it's Rue Khosa, the Boob Boss, and welcome to the second episode of Bumps, Babies, and Boobs. I am super excited about today's episode because it is Mother's Day weekend. And for Mother's Day, we've got such an amazing giveaway today. We're going to be giving away a Perfect Push Doula package valued at $2,500. Your doula is going to be none other than Jen Hamilton, the Director of Doula Services at the Perfect Push and the owner of thriving doula practice, We Welcome Doula. So I can't wait for you guys to enter in the giveaway. Stick with us till the end of the broadcast and we will be announcing the winner. Check the chat box because we're going to put the link for you guys to enter in there. But what are we talking about today? How to choose a doula. So today is all about doulas. With all the mamas out there, we know with COVID, a lot of us are stuck at home and you just don't have as much resources. And that's part of the reason why we came up with Bumps, Babies, and Boobs Live, so that we could bring all the practitioners and all the providers to you and have all your questions answered. I constantly have people asking me, how do you choose a doula? And as the owner of a private practice that does have doulas, I realize how important it is and how sacred a doula is in a family's life. We are one of the first people to hold your baby. It is such an honor, and it's so important that when parents, expectant parents, go into a doula, into choosing a doula and enter a doula patient relationship, that you go with the perfect fit for you. And to help me help you pick the perfect doula, I have our Director of Doula Services, Jen Hamilton. Hey, Jen.
Hello. How are
Welcome.
you, my friend?
I'm good, my love. She's actually going to be my co-host today. So Jen is like one of my favorite people out there. My partner in crime, someone just as obsessed as I am about bumps, babies, and boobs. So we just work together really well. Jen, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
We also have Mariah Fallon, who is the president of PALS. Let's get Mariah in the room. Hey, Mariah.
Hello, so happy to be here. Great to see you both.
So good to have you. All right, ladies. So, Mariah, you are the president of the Pacific Association of Labor Support, PALS. Tell us, what is PALS? What does that acronym mean?
So PALS is actually the original doula membership and certification organization. It was born right here in the Pacific Northwest a little over 30 years ago. And as all things do with time, it is changed, but its continued focus is in helping with the professional development of doulas here in the Pacific Northwest, supporting families through times of transition. And I really can't think of a bigger transition than that of birth. And so we focus on helping doulas be prepared. We're an avenue of certification and mentoring and community for doulas here working with families.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to highlight and talk about today is the radical work that PALS has been doing. We know with the COVID pandemic, hospitals have been trying to limit the people who are coming into the hospital. There are some hospitals that are still allowing people to have their significant other as well as a birth support person, a doula, as long as they're certified. But we know, what is the percentage of doulas that are currently certified here in the Pacific Northwest and in general? Like, what is that percentage?
Right now, based on what we know, and there's no registry of doulas. There's no one certification program. So it's very much self-reported. And what we know based on numbers we've gotten from one of the local websites run by one of our Puget Sound natives, Kim James, doulamatch.net, is that roughly 25% of the doulas in the Washington area are certified. So that means 1 out of every 4 practicing doulas is certified.
Okay, and that's a really small number. So when hospitals were saying, hey, if you're going to bring your doula, great, but we want to see certification, that was a problem for a lot of families. Like, a lot of families are like, okay, so what do you want us to do? It meant that a lot of them weren't going to be able to bring in their doulas and bring in support. And as if things could get any crazier with COVID, to then tell a family who's had this continuous support person that, yeah, they're not invited to the party, was kind of like, okay, what do we do? But you just jumped in and you were like, well, I have a solution for you. So tell us what PALS decided to do.
Um, yeah. So our board, which is roughly 8 people, got together and were really concerned about what it would mean to disrupt this relationship model, which exists between doulas and the families they're serving. We know that people choose not to certify for a large number of reasons. Everything from they just have not yet found an organization that aligns with their values. For some, it's a cost factor. But what it really did come down to for the 8 of us was an access issue. So we created a provisional certification process wherein anybody who has trained to be a doula and agrees to abide by our standards of practice and our code of ethics, we were happy to jump in and provide a 90-day provisional certification so that at the door, if they were asked to prove that they were a doula, they were able to give them a certificate from a known organization.
Okay. Now that is like super amazing. And I mean, I was so moved by the fact that not only were you guys able to mobilize the board, but mobilize it so quickly. I think it just really speaks to how strongly and how truly you guys stick to your values. There are a lot of organizations out there that are like, yeah, we're for the families and we're going to do this. But you guys were like, okay, we're not just going to say it. We're going to show you how we do it. We're going to walk the walk. So, I mean, seriously, hats off to you, to any of the doulas out there. I know Jen, as our director of doula services, originally with the Perfect Push, all our doulas were going through the donor certification. And in true Jen fashion, she came into my house and she poured it all up. And Jen, so one of the things that you've been saying and one of the things that you've instituted for all our incoming doulas is that you do want them to get the PALS certification. So let's talk a little bit, Jen. I'm going to have you talk about why and talk about why is it important for a doula to be certified? Why should families be looking for a certified doula? Does it really make a difference? Does certification matter?
Yeah. I was lucky enough when I trained to, one of the really special things about PALS is when a doula signs on with PALS and chooses to go through our certification process, we get a mentor. And that's really amazing to have someone walk with you through your very first few birth experiences. And my mentor happened to be Mariah. Lucky me. And when you have a mentor like Mariah, she really makes sure you get involved in everything. And one of those things is getting to sit on the PALS board now, which is pretty special. One of the things we realized, in part because Washington State is currently going through a process to have doula care covered by Medicaid. It's called Doula for All is the initiative. It has been written into our budget. Right now, we're in the process of figuring out with many other community organizations about what implementation is going to look like. But as we did more and more work with our local community organizations, it's readily apparent that the sort of doula work that we do here in the Northwest is really pretty grounded in colonialism. What we know as being doulas is a very, it was a movement that never left many of our communities. And yet when we codify these sorts of things, it becomes very much the system, which in the United States, when we are talking about systems, they tend to be default white-facing systems that are run by white people. And this is a huge part of why a lot of doulas don't want to certify, because they can't find an organization that is a good fit for them. So one of the things that I'm proudest about with PALS is that as we became more and more aware that certification is just simply not serving people, we kind of decided to chuck it all out the window and start again, and are in the final phases right now of actually moving totally to a competency-based certification, which is lovely because we don't really care how you gained your competencies, whether that's, following your auntie around helping with births, whether that's your mom had your siblings at home and you were there and this has always piqued your interest, whether you have amazing mentors in the community, whether you take a really high quality training. The goal is really to just recognize the gifts that you are bringing to the birth world. And if there are bits and pieces of that that are missing, then you are gonna, with PALS, you're gonna find an organization that's gonna help you grow those places if there's something that's missing from that. And we don't know of any other doula organization that's doing anything like that at this point. Most organizations will certify the doulas that train with them. There are other organizations that will certify under the umbrella. That was something that was already special about PALS, is that we would certify doulas who had gone through lots of training. And we felt like really the next level was like, we just want to see what you got. We don't care how you got it. We just want to see that you do. So
I absolutely love that, because I think it's easy, there are people who can pass any test. You tell me to take a test and I've got this amazing written knowledge. But when it actually comes to the tactile stuff and really taking care of the patient and showing up with that empathetic way that we do need to show up as birth workers, not everybody's got that. I almost say, just like midwives, midwives are born. You don't just decide to become a midwife. It's something that is so innate and something so deep inside you. We can cultivate it, we can nurture it, but really and truly, like, the seed has to germinate from the inside out. And I feel like that's what PALS is doing, and that's what PALS is going for. And I love the fact that we are here in Seattle, on native land, on sacred land. And I feel like the root of what PALS is doing honors that and really takes into account that in a lot of our Native American communities, there have been doulas. Like, they've been doing this long before we even had a word for what they were doing, but we just never recognized them because it didn't look the way we wanted it to look, right? It wasn't cute, pretty with a little bow. It just wasn't systematically the way we wanted it to be. But these communities and these cultures have been doing that. And we know, especially when it comes, now you got me on my equity horse, especially with communities of color, that was like my jam. And we know what a big difference doulas make in communities of color, but there's so many disparities in providers and doulas of color being able to go through certification. And PALS just kind of knocks that out the water and says, come as you are, bring passion with you first, and then everything else will follow. So again, leading, you guys are everybody's just behind you. I think everybody needs to know who PALS is. All good things come from the Pacific Northwest. We know that. Soon we're going to have Mariah. Everybody, years from now, people will be talking about a Mariah Fallon. So
I'm one of an incredible group of people doing this work.
No, hats off to you. I'm so honored to be here with you guys, and just how dedicated you are to birth equity and making sure that that does happen, not in it's the cool thing to talk about way, but in a real, how do we achieve it way. So that's super, super exciting for me. So thank you for all you guys are doing. All right, so let's get into, we have a question from the audience, and this is my BFF. Thanks for watching, Bouchle. I had a doula with my second, but she didn't show up to the birth. Yeah, Jen, your face says it all. I think I just had a bad one. I love the idea of a doula. Keeps me from killing the hubby. Jen, you have a thing that you say when we're talking. We do these meet and greets with families on Wednesdays, and you're always talking about the doula-husband relationship. So what does that look like? Because do doulas come in and they replace the husbands? Like, I love the analogy that you use about coaching. So can you tell everybody what a doula is supposed to be like and why we really do kind of keep you all from killing your husbands?
Yes, because a doula isn't there just for the birthing parent. A doula is there to support the family. Yes, our primary job is supporting the person who's going through something that is uncomfortable
Mhm.
Right.
A
'Cause
little
having babies is only a little uncomfortable. But the reality is that supporting the birthing person means supporting the people that are important to them as well, right?
Mhm.
So I really love being able to work with partners at births. So I think what Rue is talking about is that I always say, like, you've got me because I know what's normal in a birth. You, as the partner, know what's normal for this birthing person. And together we are like superpowers. It's like the old cartoon Wonder Twin powers activate. It's the best thing ever. And really, it's a matter of one of the things that I always talk to families about is you all need to have a discussion about the expectation for your partner in the birth space. That was something that was I almost killed my hubby the first birth, and that was why we hired a doula for our second.
And why you're going to be my doula for the third.
Right,
There you
exactly.
go.
Because oh my, can you imagine the team? Oh, GK and I are going to be an amazing
I'm going
team.
to be so well taken care of. I'm getting my perfect foot, y'all. I'm getting it.
But really, it's also a matter of, like I said, the birthing person needs to figure out what their idea of the perfect support from their partner or a family member, whatever their primary support person is going to be, and have that discussion. And then my job is to help facilitate that, right? So I have everything from dads who are 100% the coach in there doing that double hip squeeze, and I'm sitting on the sidelines and they're going, okay, tell me what to do next, tell me what to touch next, to partners who are like, this is all terrifying and overwhelming, so I'm just going to make sure everybody has a really good sandwich when they get hungry, right? And we have every range of that in between, and that is okay. The fact that you did not have a doula that showed up is heartbreaking. And one of the benefits of something like PALS that is a little local organization, because we back each other up.
Yeah, and it keeps people accountable. So Mariah, how does PALS handle situations like this? So we have somebody who the doula just didn't show up. And, I'm knock on wood, 5 years and counting, we've never missed a birth. So, and that's something that I just pride myself in. If we say we're going to be there, we're going to be there. Somebody's going to be there. I've had a birth on my birthday. I've had a birth on Christmas. I missed Christmas morning with my family. Because I take this seriously. It's sacred. So how does PALS then, what comfort should parents get when they're looking for a doula, especially one that is like PALS certified? Like, how would PALS kind of intervene and, I don't know, make things right? I don't know if you can make things right after the fact, but yeah, how does that work?
It's interesting because I think it's a further extension of the doula of what being a doula is. So I think almost every certifying body has a standards of practice, and somewhere in there should be like, what happens if you're unable to make a birth? And it's always a great question to ask in an interview. Like, what happens if you're busy? What happens if I can't reach you? Can I have the number to your backup? Do you have backup people? When it gets past that point, and unfortunately, like, those paths have been crossed and those needs weren't met. PALS specifically has a grievance process, and you can submit an email anonymous. Like, we actually have a form on our website. You can submit it anonymously. You can email us. You can call us, and you can actually talk to us about what happened. We have a team of people that get together and listen to what the story was. We then reach out to the doula and ask them, like, hey, we heard from your clients and there were these concerns expressed. And we try to facilitate communication and resolution.
Yeah.
Does it make everybody happy at the end of the day? We hope that everybody comes away feeling heard and listened to. And I'm very grateful for the fact that, I've been with our organization for 6 years, and I think I'm only aware of one actual grievance process that was client facing.
Okay. Well, and that's so reassuring. So, families out there listening, don't just look for a certification, look for a PALS certification. No bias here, none at all. No bias here. I am completely neutral in this. But what, Mariah, just kind of piggybacking from what you were saying, what questions should one be asking? Because I think that's a lot of times parents walk into this and they're like, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. Like seriously, I can. You don't want me to, you know what I mean? But the question is what comes out of my mouth and actually what I deliver, is that going to match? And sometimes there are those questions that, parents should be asking their doulas. What would you say are your, I don't know, top 3 questions that you're like, you know what, before you hire a doula, and Jen, this is going to come to you next. What are the questions that, parents should be asking? What are those key questions?
For me, it's not always about certification, though. Like I value certification, but it is alignment with an organization, because it does give you access to that follow-up process, and it means that that person has agreed to abide by a set of standards in their interactions and how they show up professionally and ethically for a family. So finding out what organization does somebody align themselves with.
Got it.
Finding out, like, I always love the backup question, and for me, it's always very challenging because I have a pretty good group of backup doulas that I am like finding what I'm lucky. I very rarely have ever had to tap into them, but I have them. I cultivate those relationships. I take care of them. They get cards in the mail like, hey, thanks for agreeing to be a person that I maybe could have called, even though I never called you. I still love you. What's another third question? I think I'm going to toss this to you, Jen. What's a good third question?
Oh, well, a good third question.
You do the work. You're like, and here you go. Catch this. I love it.
Because the honest answer to that is, for me, it's like the backup question is always one that parents are like, what did I forget to ask? And I'm like, you forgot to ask me about this. And here's where you go for the information. But honestly, it's so much more about feel than anything else. When I was brand new starting out, I had people that took a chance on me, and those are still some of my favorite births. The reality is that, I'm a very experienced doula with like well over 100 births under my belt. And I am still not going to be the right fit for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I feel like our culture, which, you guys hear, our culture says, but our, American culture is very much like when you pay the most, you get the best. And when we're talking about a doula relationship, that is not necessarily true. You can have a doula that costs, $3,000 and has 400, 500 births under their belt and is a terrible fit for your family. Mm-hmm. You can hire somebody brand new out of training or working on their certification, 3 births, and they can be your person. So honestly, when you're interviewing your doula, if you have not yet tapped into that gut feeling that you have, this is my line, is that pregnancy, birth, and early parenting, that's the time we listen to the little voice. Your little voice is going to help you find your right doula. And the lovely thing is there are so many different doulas in our community, so many different lenses people bring to this work. Wow. We have everybody from doulas who are all about the crystals and the crystal energy to doulas who are just like pure science. And literally everything in between. So
love it.
You'll find your person.
So just to kind of summarize that, alignment, because certification, as you were saying, Mariah, only about 25% of the doulas, as far as we know from the data that we have right now in the Pacific Northwest, are certified. So, and Jen, you mentioned that just because you're certified doesn't mean they don't qualify for certification. They probably just haven't found an organization that aligns well with them. So when parents are asking about the doulas, definitely you need to dig in and make sure that you find a doula. who do they align with? What do they believe in? What philosophy are they practicing under, to make sure that you can track back and say, okay, are you sticking with that, right? Are you holding true to the values of that organization that you say you align with? And then making sure that there is a backup plan. So if you can't make it, life happens, especially right now with COVID. Who is your backup? What is the backup plan? What would happen? And then I'm with you on this, that, that gut instinct. And a lot of times parents will say to me, but, I'm not a mom yet. I'm like, you're a mom the minute you got knocked up. Like, you are officially a mama. Like, this is it. So that instinct that there's, you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a partner, you're a parent. And so listening to that little voice that tells you when you sit and you look in our eyes, and I always say to people, right now it's strange because we're meeting virtually, but, just looking in the white of somebody's eyes and knowing that I want you in the delivery room. I want you in the most intimate, most personal experience that I'm going to have. And I'm okay with that. That is so, so important. But another thing that I want us to highlight is, are there any red flags? Are there any things that you're like, yeah, as soon as you heard that, you probably shouldn't have hired that person? Or just especially, Mariah, I'm sure both of you could really, because you guys have mentored a lot of people. So are there any red flags where you're just like, yeah, this isn't going to work out?
Are you asking from the family's perspective or from the doula's perspective?
From the family.
Two very different.
Red flags too, right? Where you're like, yeah, this family is not. No, but mostly from the parents' perspective, because I think doulas, I guess we do have some sense of control and we can agree to take or not take somebody on. But with families, I think they're definitely coming from that place of just not knowing. And with having two amazing doulas here, I figured, who've mentored a lot of people, I figured you guys have probably come up with some stuff that you're like, yeah, this is probably one of those things that pops up and you're like, yeah, this is not a good fit, or this is a red flag. If a doula does, are there any things that you're just like, yeah?
Oh, I can jump in on this one.
Go for it.
If a family asks, well, what clinical tasks do you do? Can you tell us when it's really time to go to the hospital?
By checking my cervix.
Right. And that was like, it's like, well, doulas do have some training, depending on the organization they train through, to do some clinical skills. Like some of us have received training on how to assist someone who's taking a blood pressure. But if it inserts anything into their body, it's a hard no. We don't have that level of training. And if there is that level of training, then it's not strictly a doula that you're hiring. And I think that to me, that's like a really big red flag. Are you hiring a doula, or are you hiring somebody with advanced clinical training? And then like the contract should reflect that.
So I think that really brings up an interesting point, because a lot of times people will say, so what's the difference between a doula and a midwife? You're like, you're my doula, you're going to deliver my baby. Like, I think a lot of parents do really look for a doula, and they want a doula, but they're thinking a midwife. And so Jen, what is the difference? What is the difference between, how is a doula different from a midwife?
Yeah. I think Mariah just really hit on that we don't do clinical things, right? I'm not catching a baby. Like, that's amazing, but that's not my job. My job is physical, emotional, informational support. And for me, kind of to go back to the red flag thing, it's support. That's the red flag for me. Is somebody coming into this birth with their own agenda for your birth? Because there are doulas.
Hold on. You have to say that again. Like, I think just in case somebody missed it, say that again and say it slowly.
There are people who are coming to your birth with their own agenda. An agenda that is different than yours.
Amen. Preach.
That is a red flag. Right? A doula who's going to walk in and you're going to say, I want an unmedicated birth. And they're going to be like, why on earth would you ever do that? Of course you get an epidural. Or I want an epidural. Why would you do that to poison your baby with chemicals? Not our job, right? Like, you can have those opinions as a doula. we at PALS, when we are mentoring you, are going to say, it's fine to hold those opinions, but what about when birth goes sideways? And right? Are you going to walk out on your home birth family when they have to transfer to a hospital? So really it is we certainly have opinions and feelings about things, and it is not our job to use a family to work those out. So yeah, not a midwife's job either, but really back to the question, we're not going to do the clinical things. And sometimes people do sort of feel, because I think there's that confusion, feel like, oh, doulas only support out of hospital birth, or doulas only support unmedicated birth. Could not be further from the truth.
I think I heard somebody break it down really well, that midwives and OBs, they keep an eye on everything from the waist down. and doulas support everything from the waist up. And there's obviously some gray areas with that description, but it's true. Like, we do not do clinical assessment. We do not do clinical intervention. And that's like a really good question to ask. I mean, that's a red flag, all wrapped up together.
Perfect. That is so good to know, because I think a lot of people get a little confused and they're like, okay, so what's my doula going to do? Are they going to check my cervix? And if your doula is checking your cervix, that is a problem. If your doula is, and I remember, and I keep saying this over and over again, I used to hate doulas. Jesus Christ, they should just drive me crazy. As a labor and delivery nurse, I'm like, why? I would have doulas who are telling the patient that, well, actually, the doctor said that your pelvis is too small, but actually I can see that your pelvis, I'm like, and how did you and your x-ray vision, like, what is going on here? And it may have been the few doulas that I bumped into, because then I've since fallen in love with doulas and, partnered up with them in all sorts of ways. Shout out to the person who made me fall in love with doulas, Wendy Sharp. Of Doula Love in Portland, Oregon. Love me some Wendy. But Wendy really brought it to me and she said, Rue, you are not working with the right doulas. They did not understand their scope of practice. And I think that's what you ladies are talking about, is what is your scope of practice? What can you do and what can you not do? And also what should you do and what should you not do? Doulas are not there to check your cervix. Doulas are not there to figure out what position your baby's in and tell you if your baby's breech. Doulas are not there to try and help you spin the baby or do a version. That is not what they're there for. They're not there to listen to heart tones and tell you that the baby is okay while you're at home. They are not trained to do that. Doulas are there from the waist up. And really, with this month being Maternal Mental Health Month, one of the things that I want to talk about is just how important it is. The number one complication of birth is depression and anxiety, PMANS, right? So, and we know that by hiring a doula, a family and a woman can drastically decrease the risk of ending up with a perinatal anxiety or depression disorder. So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us, especially right now with everything that's going on with COVID, why should women be hiring doulas? Why is this a good investment? It's kind of scary. And then we're going to go, Malia, I see your question. We're going to that next, because I think it kind of plays in that, where everybody right now is really conscious about finances. And, do you really need a doula right now? Like, what gives?
I sort of feel like you need a doula right now more than ever, because it really is the consistency of relationship. And that is, I think, part of why having a doula is so protective, right? Because you have someone who spends the time over weeks and months to get to know your family, to really get to know your values, who is helping you craft a plan that reflects your values and preferences, and is helping you learn to self-advocate, which is huge. I think going back to finding your person, there are many of us in our community working as doulas who are survivors of past trauma, who have had rainbow babies, who have survived cancer and then gone on to have a baby. That little voice, like, you will find your people. And that's what I find so amazing about our community, is you'll feel the energy of your person. I end up, this is no surprise to either of these people, I end up dealing with a lot of people who are tender and anxious. Go figure.
Never.
I know. And it really is just having somebody who sees your full humanity and can honor that, as such a sacred time where so much is changing.
Yeah.
And then connect you with resources that are well beyond our scope, right? Starting early, one of the things that made me fall in love with Rue is that in our very first interview together, she was talking about PMADs with a client in an interview. And I was like, yeah, this is the right person for me to partner with. Because it is, even something that is so wanted is a stressor, right?
Yeah, huge.
Well,
stressor.
And I think you hit on something there. And I mean, like, this is kind of like a flashback to one of the earlier questions. Like, I have been asked a number of times, when is an ideal time to hire a doula? And like, I can't underscore enough, like, especially when things are very anxiety producing in the world around us, the sooner you start that relationship, the more opportunity you have to develop a relationship, the more opportunity you have to access the resources that they have available to you. Because I know some, Jen knows some, Rue knows some, together we know a shit ton. But you don't know that it's there unless you're actually connecting with somebody. That particular statistic, and I don't remember what the specific number is, but like, that it is the most common complication of the perinatal period. And like
1 in 5.
Well, like, when you sit with it for a minute and you're like, well, of course that really makes sense, because not every pregnancy is anticipated.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, of course people are going to experience anxiety. Like, is this the right decision? Is this the right choice? And imagine the life-changing implications of having somebody you can call up, who you can share that with, and who you can talk it through, who's not going to make you feel bad about giving voice to what's stirring in your own body. Yeah.
Oh, beautifully said, Mariah. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I think it's really tricky. I'm gonna put up Malia's question because I think it's a great segue from here. And she says, my first birth went so fast. My fiance made the comment that he was glad we didn't spend the money on a doula. Suggestions on convincing him we need one for the next baby. Well, enter the giveaway and it's going to be free. So you won't have to worry about it. And then he's definitely going to pay for it for the third. I can tell you that. He's going to be like, we're sold on Jen. So yeah, what would you guys say? Because, I know I have a husband who is, we're born and raised in Zimbabwe. My husband is very, very private. Bless his heart. He married me and I am like, hello, see me, see everything about me. So I know for our last delivery, which we recorded, and even though we had family and friends there, even he was a little uncomfortable having other people in the delivery room. Like, he's like, why is everybody looking at my goodies? Like, what's going on here? Like, he's not the kind of guy. So Jen, this is going to be so much fun. Like, we're going to have a hoot. Like, how do you get the dads and, how do you get the dads to come in and just, embrace the fact, and how do you make it okay? Because it is hard. Sometimes the moms are like, I want it, and the dads are like, wow, you have me. Am I not enough?
Yeah.
And yet every birth is different. Yeah. And every experience is different. And actually, like, I'm not going to speak for Jen, but I imagine also with you have those first time clients that things move pretty efficiently and you're like, So getting prepared to help somebody go through what could be an even faster experience a second time.
Fast and Furious.
And like, I've heard it described as like being hit by a train. I mean, it is a lot of big emotional and physical changes that happen very suddenly. And I feel like who wouldn't want another set of hands to reach for, whether it's the birthing person or the partner, who can provide that, like, okay, we're doing this and you're not alone. And we're going to make sure that the people that need to be here are here. We're going to make sure we get to where we need to be in time to be there in time, because nobody wants a highway baby on purpose. And then having another person who can be that extra set of hands, that extra set of eyes. And it, like, again, just like every birth can be so very different. I think FAST is the other F word that we don't talk about. So like I say efficient. People can be very efficient birthers for any one of their deliveries, and it does not mean that's going to be the way it goes for the others.
Right. Yeah. The other thing too, that I think to piggyback on those very efficient births, is that our bodies aren't really built for that. And there are all these hormone changes that need to take place and all these emotions that are going to unfold. And I find that for births that don't take a whole lot of time, I'm often there a lot longer postpartum than I am for a longer birth, because all of a sudden now you're processing all this stuff and there's the wailing human being on you that's like, feed me. So it can be a lot. It can be a lot. You know, everybody's like, oh, that's the dream. And if you talk to many of the people who have those births, they're like, I mean, it was good and also terrifying.
Yeah, my first birth was 4 hours and 44 minutes. I don't know what happened. Like, I was just a mom. So I remember just cussing a storm, and I felt like I was a drunken sailor, and it was like, what is and it Fast and Furious. They really, it's something else. And even as a labor and delivery nurse, I remember in retrospect, I think I got my epidural, and they checked me and I was 9. And with the way everything was progressing, I was a first-time mom. Obviously, I wasn't supposed to go that fast. Wasn't supposed to. It wasn't the norm. So I wonder. I had the most amazing support with my overlake nurse sisters. So I had an amazing birth. But I wonder if I had taken off like the nurse lens, which doulas don't have, and said, but what else could be going on with your body? Let's check you before you get that epidural. I possibly could have been, I would have found out I was 9 centimeters and, good to go. So yeah, Fast and Furious, I think, and even knowing that, thinking about going for a third baby, I'm like, I want Jen. I don't even know if I want the baby. I just want a doula.
I want Jen to move in.
I know. Yeah. You want me to move in for a little bit? Yeah. I don't know. You might have to take all of us. I think back to, I alluded to this earlier, but for our first birth, for our baby who's going to be 21 in July, riddle me that, Batman. That's terrifying. My poor husband is still scarred, but he's like, we went to the classes and they told us all this stuff to do. And then you had this contraction. And I said, babe, how about you breathe the way they told us? And you said, how about you don't tell me what to do? And I was like, sunk. Like, you both know my sweet husband.
I know. Ian is the sweetest person out there.
Right? The reality is that I just needed him there emotionally. Yeah. Right. And I think I was having this conversation with a partner today. Like, it's so ingrained in what we teach male-bodied people in our society, is that they have to be able to fix everything. And honestly, your partner doesn't want you to fix it. Some partners might, but most of the time they need you for that emotional touchstone. And we can fix it. Right? We can help make it not hurt so much. We can be the hand you squeeze, right? We can help with the counter pressure and the double hip squeeze and all that, and free your partner up to look in your eyes and say, you're doing such a great job. I'm so proud of you.
I think one of my favorite deliveries, I have to say, of all the deliveries I've done, I get the tightest hugs from the dads after the fact. Like, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much for being here. But I remember doing a delivery, a Christmas delivery on my Christmas babies. He is going to be 4 now. And I remember the whole time, he just looked in the eyes and kept on saying, you are so beautiful. You're so strong. You're so beautiful. You're so strong. I was like, will you marry me? Like, I was like, what? Like, he was just, and I felt like there's this amazing connection the entire time. He was there for every contraction and just right in there. And we did everything else. It was such a beautiful delivery. But ladies, we're about to wrap up. I can't believe 45 minutes goes by super fast when you're having fun. I want you guys to wrap up by telling us one of the craziest things that has happened to you in a delivery. Spill the tea. Do you see my boob mug?
It's great.
I love that mug.
Rue, you promised this wasn't going to happen.
Oh, I did? I said
know.
no questions? I left it for the end.
I think one of the craziest, oh gosh, it's so hard to know. One of my favorite moments was actually with one of my teen clients, and who had been really like, yeah, I know I'm going to get an epidural. I know I'm going to do this. But I could see the power that was sitting in this tiny body. And it was crazy. We went in for an induction because they were worried about the baby, and she just stopped dilating. And they were like, we have 3 days of data on this baby. Go home. This baby's fine. And she was like, what? They were like, we'll see you again in a few days if nothing happens. Well, sure enough, like 2 days later, it happened. And when I arrived to meet her at the hospital, she was sitting in the bathtub with the grumpiest look I've ever seen on her face. And finally, they were like, you have to get out of the tub now. Like, we have to know what's going on. And she was at 9 centimeters. And they were like, well, now's your chance for an epidural. And she was like, why would I want that? I did all the hard stuff. It was just such a beautiful birth. This was the same little teenager who was like, I don't want any boy doctors in my room. And who did she bond with? Our 6'2" gay male resident who like sat on the floor with her while she cried and talked about how much it stunk, you know, and like patted her back. And it was the craziest week, and also just so wonderful, and really a chance for this young person to really realize her own power. And it was really, really a cool thing to see.
Crazy beautiful.
Crazy beautiful.
Mariah, what was your oh my God?
Accompanying a family into a C-section, and like we stay on the top side of the curtain as well, but every once in a while you stand up and you just peek over. And knowing where we were and knowing that they were about to get to the amniotic sac, and they did, and there was this fountain of fluid that like soaked the providers on both sides, like down their pants, and like whooshed out for like 4 feet from the table. And I was like, that needed to be on camera. They got completely soaked, and it was one of my favorite moments.
That's what I love about birth is no matter what happens, I feel like as long as I'm doing this, I never have a dull day. My job is cuddling babies, massaging boobs, in the lactation clinic, and attending birthday parties. Like seriously, like we have just
Best job.
I know it doesn't get better than this. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me on the second episode of Bumps, Babies, and Boobs. It was such a pleasure to talk to you guys about doulas, and I hope that as people continue to watch this, they know what to look for. Mariah, I cannot tell you how impressed and just in love I am with everything you're doing for the doulas in the community and pals. And I'm just so proud to actually be here with you today. Hats off to you. Madam President. You're doing great. Keep up the good work. We love it. We love it. You're also the owner of Birth Matters Northwest, and you are a doula yourself. So y'all call Mariah if the perfect push is not available. Seriously, we have so many doulas here. I just always tell people there are so many doulas and so many mamas and babies, so much for everybody to go around. So we are so fortunate to be in a community that is so rich of resources. Jen Hamilton, my very own personal person, Director of Doula Services. Thank you for being here. Do we know who the winner of Brittany is in the back? She's our producer. Who is the winner? Winner is Craig Turner. Congratulations, Craig Turner. We are going to be emailing you. Jen is going to be your doula. So you just won a $2,500 value package from the Perfect Push. Welcome to the Perfect Push family. It is our honor to be there for the birth of your child. We cannot wait to support you guys. All right, ladies, let's go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for being here. Good night, everybody. Enjoy your Friday night.
Good night. Thank you.
Night all.